It was only in Wrath of the Lich King that we, in the Bronze Dragon Shrine, along with our future selves, witnessed that, well, Morozond and Nozdormu were in fact the same. A fairly massive moment. At the time, Chromie didn't believe it, but no, he was the enemy. And this all begs the question, why did he turn? We would learn, of course, that Nozdormu was empowered by Aman'Thul, the head of the Titans. He was granted power over the Timeways, but to prove the limits of his power, Aman'Thul also showed him his own true death. But I think there's more to all of this than we've realized. First, our bearings. The scope of WoW's lore, and Azeroth's place within it, has shifted a bit over the years. From those early days of defending the world, to learning, no, this world is actually very, very important, to learning, oh, it's actually a Titan, then to learning it's the final Titan, and then that maybe it's a bit more than that, or just really quite humongously powerful. So it's with this in mind that we've got to think about the loose thread in Nozdormu's story. This is a thread that Blizzard can weave into the game right now, especially with the Bronze Dragonflight having a pretty significant story in this new expansion. This is, in fact, how we can tie together the Old Gods, the Doomsayers that appeared in Legion, events of the Shadowlands, and a whole bunch more. Like how Melkor's escape through the Door of Night was a looming thing that could maybe happen in the plotline of Tolkien's Legendarium, something similar and altogether rather terrible may well happen to us. What's coming is today's sponsor, HelloFresh. Look, I just can't go on eating processed food and wasting my money on delivery apps. It really adds up. And that's why I use HelloFresh.com, where the code Bellular65 will get you 65% off plus free shipping. Now, their meal kit service is absolutely killer. It is one of the easiest ways to just directly improve your quality of life, because all I've got to do is select meals ahead of time with their app. They're delivered in a cooled box. I store that, and well, groceries are done. When it's time to cook, and today it's this delicious and very fast to make teriyaki chicken, I just grab the recipe bag and the refrigerated ingredients, follow their step-by-step recipe, which is just fantastic. Now everything is pre-measured, and in their rapid meals, they've even got some awesome time savers like pre-diced chicken, which is just so handy, and the same for other ingredients too. Now, that means the hassle of shopping and planning is gone, and because you get what you need, there's no food waste. There's no random ingredients just laying around cluttering up your home, making cleaning and that sort of thing far easier. They're carbon neutral, ship recyclable packaging. Overall, they cut food waste by 25%. So versus fast food, HelloFresh is cheaper, faster, and so much more healthy. Nutritional info is of course posted on the recipe, so there's no faffing around calculating your macros, which is dead handy. So between my work here and my partner's very hectic job also running her game studio, we're both super pressed for time. And that means that HelloFresh is truly a boon to our quality of life. So you can check them out yourself at the link below, where the code Bellular65 will get you 65% off. So, thanks HelloFresh, let's go. In the End Time dungeon, we travel to another timeline, far into the future. One where we fail to stop Deathwing, where hope is utterly dead. There we find him, Morozond. The Titans gave Nozdormu a vision of his own death to humble him. Now, we believed that the Old Gods, very likely N'Zoth, somewhat tricked him into believing that he could subvert that death. So, this timeline exists because he chose to cheat death. If that's his only motive, then actually his dialogue doesn't really line up. Or does it? Well, let's get into that. If he saw his own death, then he would have seen us kill him. And that would mean he would do whatever he could to avert us killing him. So, you know, certainly not fighting us. This is where my efforts broke down, right? Piecing this together. Only for it to fall right into place. Because Chronicle 3 suggests that Morozond's death is rote, that it is going to happen the way that it happens. Okay, so Nozdormu might have seen us kill him, meaning that the End Time dungeon is his end. Now, the thing is, we have the beginning of this character's story, we have the end of this character's story. Therefore, the mystery lies in what we don't have but can infer, what we can figure out. So let's go back into the game.
The end time, I once called this place. I had not seen by then. I did not know. You hope to what? Stop me here? Change the fate I worked so tirelessly to weave?
That's the first thing that he tells us. That he did indeed call this place the end time, but clearly he doesn't really think that now. And this kind of confirms two things. First, he saw a timeline in which the end time happened, thought it was truly the end, but then found out there was something far worse. Or he just quite literally saw this moment as his end time. But either way, something changed his mind, and that something is the true end time.
You crawl unwitting like a blind, writhing worm towards endless madness and despair. I have witnessed the true end time. This is a blessing you simply cannot comprehend.
Okay, the true end time. So, this thing that we see in that dungeon, where Void is pretty much consuming all of Azeroth, in comparison to the true end time, that is a blessing. Now, we know that he was manipulated by old gods, almost certainly N'Zoth, who clearly used the trauma of him seeing his own death as an opening. I mean, if we saw the moment of our own death, it would drive us a bit mad, wouldn't it? But clearly, N'Zoth revealed something more, and this is especially clear in a modern context.
6 seats at the high table, 6 mouths that hunger, 1 will consume all others.
N'Zoth told us this, and time of course proved him right. Zovaal usurped the functions of death in this big attempt to control the realm of every cosmic force. He wanted to lord over reality, and, as we would find out, stop what was coming. Now, as much as we all sighed at that whenever Zovaal said it in the cinematic, it is not an absurdity given what Morozond previously said during the Cataclysm. That the end time that we fought so hard to prevent in that expansion was itself preferable to the true end time, the thing that Nozdormu had seen, what Morozond had seen. Now, what is it that drove him mad, that turned Nozdormu into Morozond? Was it seeing his own death, or was it seeing the true end of things? And the idea that Zovaal would want to stop this, that Void would want to stop this, that actually is completely supported in the lore. Right? That this end is so horrid that everyone would want to stop it. That is supported in this line. And even the darkness howls for the light it once despised. Whatever's coming, it is bad on a scale that is hard to fathom. And the death of Morozond, way back in the Cataclysm expansion, pretty much more than half the game's life ago, that is the place where the first seed was planted. Whatever this is, Azeroth, of course, is the key. Old gods wish to corrupt Azeroth, using her powers to usher in their masters, the Void Lords, these mysterious beings somewhat outside of the universe that we've known of for quite some time but don't really know a lot of details on. Now, they clearly know something bad is coming. Wishing to use us as instruments of his will, N'Zoth says, "You are indeed the ones I seek, the ones to turn the tide." Blizzard have since teased that just as mortals go somewhere when they die, so too do old gods. So in the Battle for Azeroth expansion, we passed N'Zoth's trial with Unat, we freed him from his prison. I mean, in 2 ways, we did that by defeating Ashara, and some would even say that by killing him in the end, we just made his essence go back to where it would always go, meaning that he's now free from Azeroth. And then, of course, we defeated death, which was perhaps the thing Void was afraid of. Nice. Then light, as shown in Zira, in Legion, and in AU Draenor, it ultimately does have a domineering tendency. You're with them, or you're against them. Much like with Order. Of course, they're ostensibly our allies, Amanthul and his buds, but they would obliterate a whole world full of sentient, lovely beings without a second thought, as shown with Algalon in Wrath of the Lich King. So yes, obviously Order too wants to control Azeroth. So yeah, really everyone wants Azeroth. She is key in almost everybody's plan, and something horrendously bad is coming. So let's make these pieces fall into place, starting with the Doomsayers of Legion. These were just these crazy crackpot theorists who appeared in the streets handing out pamphlets. And they appeared in and around the same time as the Chronicle project began. And that's where we really see Blizzard place all the roots for their cosmology and try to build out and solidify what ultimately is this new era of Warcraft's lore. As the Legion invasion loomed, they took to the streets. The Doomsayers had a common theme, that Sargeras was good, that he would set us free from torment. And then we get to this pamphlet. The end of all things. The crooked serpent with no eyes is watching from the endless sky. Forked tongues flicker through the black pits in dead stars. The veil between dream and dreamer slides away like skin from bone. And even the darkness howls for the light it once despised. Heavy stuff. Now, of course, I believe this passage describes the end time that Morzond saw. It fits perfectly, I think. But beyond that, there's some more meaning. The Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, right? It's the basis of the Old Testament, and it makes reference to a crooked serpent, which essentially represents uncreation, sort of that which exists but not by God's will. So whatever the ultimate end is, I think this crooked serpent line is certainly referring to it. I mean, come on, crooked serpent with no eyes, there's fairly clear imagery serpents are in many of the great human stories. So from what we've seen, Azeroth is of course central to the plan of every force. Light and life have seemed friendly, and then there's Order, who we work for but kind of helped take out of action at the end of Legion. There's Fel, who threatens, death and Void's plan, but of course we took them out. There's Void, who he defeated for Zovaal, and then there's Death, who, let's be real, N'Zoth's a smart cookie, we defeated Death for Void. It's plans within plans, all the way down. Of course, they all involve Azeroth, and per Morzond, the end time where Void wins is still preferable. So Morzond, he was hurt, he was troubled, he was manipulated, betrayed, he was not blessed with knowledge, no, he was cursed with knowledge that nobody is prepared to hold. So here are his final words.
You know not what you have done, Amanthul, what I have seen.
What indeed? I believe that he saw what Zovaal saw, the true end, the worst outcome. Zovaal hated the First One's design, and there are clear critiques, right? Mortal lives, just put through the system, all that suffering and misery. But few have thought of it like Firim. When Zovaal is defeated, Firim stumbles upon a horrible realization. Initially, he senses a fracture in the First One's grand design, a fracture caused by Zovaal, imperceptible but potentially catastrophic. Indeed, denizens of the Shadowlands even see the Devourers as a literal sign of the end times. He prays the First One saw Zovaal's final malevolent act, that they've put measures in place. And then a horrible truth dawns on him. Unless their design was never meant to endure. And that is the possibility that haunts me. Okay, that's pretty rough. And all this comes back to one thing, that true end that Morazon spoke of. So, is that end, is that essentially an architected end? Fated? I mean, fate is something that is constantly referenced in the Shadowlands. Threads of fate, and there's quite a lot more, and we went into it in the past. Just think about a few things with Elisande, where Elisande was never able to actually see what we, the players, would do when she scried through all the timelines, and that maybe says there's something special about us. I mean, in the Shadowlands, we're a prophesized savior, and it makes me wonder, just as the Matrix creates the One, are we, or Zovaal, in fact accounted for in a design that is not meant to last? Is it that? Or is there a true threat? Is the Crooked Serpent a more literal opposition to the first ones? Is there one who, like Melkor in Tolkien's work, was banished outside of time? And if Aman'Thul has this mastery over time and can see future realities, how did he not see any of this coming? Did he not know that giving Nozd'umu that knowledge would have consequences? Or did he know? I mean, if the Titans are, as the art styles suggest, near successors to the first ones, then does Aman'Thul know more than he's letting on? I mean, take the Devourers. They are of the Shadowlands' in between, and we're actually told that they were part of the design. They're there to keep balance until something changed. That thing changing caused them to consume, to corrupt, to obliterate. So what changed? If Zovaal's betrayal was expected, as Firim worries, and just as, in the works of Tolkien, as Eru Iluvatar planned for Melkor's disharmony in the Song of Creation, then the Devourers turning would also have been expected. Something bad is coming. I don't know how many expansions away it is. Hopefully many expansions away, and rather than a big bad guy to just pop up and go boo, this is something, significantly more meaningful and also significantly more slow, right? I think we would all want that. But it's interesting to have these sort of looming, interesting threats going on. Mass Effect obviously didn't go in the greatest direction, but if you take some of the dark energy plot lines that were being suggested towards the start of the Mass Effect franchise, which of course they pivoted away from, I think, in a less successful fashion, I think those things can be really interesting in a world. And I think it's very relevant for us because Nozd'umu turns to Morazon at some point. Many of us, me included, think that he's going to turn in Dragonflight. Now, he's known his own death for a long time. So, is it something else that makes him turn? And knowing his own death is merely an opening? Hard to say. But I think that this video, this is us, placing a firm footing in this area. And I think that this is only going to become more relevant and more important as time flows on. As far as I'm concerned, the biggest risk here is that Blizzard have tied Zovaal into a storyline that they established, that a very successful potential storyline, in fact, that they established with the end of Cataclysm, that they established with the Doomsayers, that they've hinted at in various different ways, but by putting Zovaal there, to a lot of people, that really it's a real deal breaker. So let's hope that the Zovaal-ish side of things just kind of fades away, and that we, in expansions like Dragonflight, can slowly progress this using the more established and liked storylines, like Nozd'umu, Morazon, and the Infinite Dragonflight, who are all pretty cool. Okay, there you go. That's the big, deep, dark video on the big, looming, scary thing that's going on. I mean, hell, even just now that I'm finished this video, think about that whole prophecy with, the crazy big battle at the very end, Army of the Light, think Anduin is involved. Potentially Illidan was involved in that whole, prophecy or child of shadow and light thing. I mean, is that this battle? Is it like is it Dagorath? The very end, the sort of final climactic battle. It's a storyline that Tolkien perhaps moved away from, but it exists in his notes, I believe, at the very least, which is essentially when Melkor is able to go back through the Door of Night and the sort of, the final big thing happens. I don't know. Maybe Blizzard are going to do something like that. Maybe it's a weird, cyclical universe. Maybe the Titans of us right now are the first ones of whoever comes next. I don't know. Let's not think about it too much and try to have some fun running dungeons and shit. Have a great day. I hope you found this to be an interesting video, and I'll see you next time.